This week, the search began to fill a vacancy on the board for the Tucson Unified School District. Mark Stegeman announced his resignation last week. Voters first elected him in 2008, and he won re-election twice. With 15 months left to go in his current term, he explains why this was the time to step down.
It's partly my family obligations, which have increased a lot, and it's partly a sense that I may not be able, although I think we've made a lot of progress, I think it's hard to see where we're going to get to where I envisioned the district, which is really to be the best district in the county. I've always felt like that was possible, that we have the assets, and that's still possible, but the road looks very challenging.
You've been on the board 11 years, but there's been a number of superintendents, and school boards actually have more responsibility than probably most of the public actually realize. Did you get some things done under the leadership shifts that kept occurring?
I think part of the problem is that school boards, including ours, sometimes don't take enough time picking a superintendent. It's really something that should be a huge effort. It is indeed the most important decision the board makes, and I don't think the board historically has treated it as the most important decision. And of course, if you don't make the right choice at the beginning, then you lead yourself into all kinds of trouble and difficult decisions later.
Partisan politics get in the way of action within TUSD School Board?
I think it does to some extent. The board is very intertwined with Democratic Party politics, and I think that influences outcomes to some extent. I'm an independent. I think ideally the board would be highly nonpartisan. I think it needs a business voice as well as an educator voice, and I think it needs people that are focused on education and not on external politics, as much as has been true. I'll move that we...
A university professor, Stegeman is proud of what he has been able to accomplish, including spearheading the district's self-insurance health plan that bumped up cash reserves by millions. The board mandate to increase instructional spending and decrease administrative cost, uncovering the so-called blacklist, a list of some 1,400 district employees and stakeholders deemed problematic, the introduction of an internal auditor, and opening up the top-performing university high school to out-of-district students.
The community needs to make a decision. Do they want TUSD, does it want TUSD to be a strong, really much improved district? And if the community wants that, it's going to have to elect a strong board with a common vision that gets a superintendent that shares that vision and is willing to break some china. It's not going to be easy. It can be done, but it won't be easy. And I don't know if the will is there. There is not the will in the current management structure. Dr. Trujillo has not been a radical reform superintendent, but that's partly because the current board or the previous board would not accept a radical reform superintendent. It has to start with the board and include the superintendent, but it's going to require a lot of strength.
Why do you suppose that hasn't been able to occur prior to this?
Well, I think there have been specific issues where even a modest reform provoked tremendous resistance from the particular interests that would be affected by it or negatively affected. And this is typical in all levels of politics, that the vested interest that is negatively affected protests so loudly with such impact that even some modest reforms don't go through.
Nonetheless, he's hopeful about TUSD's future.
I have many, many friends in TUSD. I wish them well, and there has been progress and there will continue to be progress. The buck on everything stops with the board, and every time something bad happens in TUSD, whether or not I could realistically control it, it weighs heavily, and it's I have to admit, a relief to be free of that.
There's some solace in knowing that you're leaving and you've done what you thought you could in the time that you spent on the board.
Well, I could have done better. I accomplished quite a few things, I think. When I went to make a list, I was surprised because you sort of forget over time. But there are many, many more things that weren't accomplished, and there are many things that in retrospect I would do differently. Issues that could have been managed better, battles that probably were unwinnable and shouldn't have been fought, battles that were winnable that maybe should have been fought and weren't. So I have regrets, but I'm still proud of some of the progress that we made, a lot of the progress that we made.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.